Let's get this sports podcast party started, all right?
The JAYREELZ podcast.
Why don't you wait until July 1st to make an announcement? What a disgrace. He can rack up all these numbers in October, November, and December, but what really counts is let me see this in January.
The sports rebel without a pause, delivering fast-paced, jam-packed sports talk like no other.
Listen, I gotta call it as I see it. He is not a good player. I'm sick and tired of having to deal with the disappointment of this franchise. When does it stop? And yes, another winter that I can sleep in peace. Coming correct, directed in full effect. Let's get it.
This is the JAYREELZ podcast. Welcome aboard.
What is happening, my good people? Greetings. How are you? How's it going? How's everybody doing out there? What is the latest and greatest? Hope everybody's doing well, feeling fantastic, in excellent spirits. As we get closer to the month of May, April's going to go out with a big roar as there's a lot to unpack when it comes to the sports universe, and you're here to listen to it all as this is the JAYREELZ podcast with JAYREELZ. For my first timers, welcome aboard. And for those who've been banging with me going back to the very beginning, somewhere in the middle, or even as early as last Monday, I welcome you guys and gals back because, of course, this past Thursday, we did not have a podcast. I was at the offices of Bleacher Report, House of Highlights, where you'll be kept posted. I don't know when they're going to release it. I did a couple of videos there. One, a fan versus haters. The other, last man standing. I was not the last man standing. I was actually ended up third. But we could talk about that some other time. Definitely a lot to get into when it comes to that. But with the podcast and with what we got going on, there is plenty, and I mean plenty, to unpack. And I could go in 100 different directions today, and that's what's the beauty about doing this type of format and this type of show today. Because, yes, if I was an NFL guy, which I am, but let's say if this was an NFL podcast, we already know what the discussion would be about. Or if I was a baseball podcast, you had a manager fired over the weekend, and maybe two more could be forthcoming. That would be the subject line. If I had a tennis podcast, we found out over the last few days that there is a big-time tennis player on the men's side that is not going to participate in the French Open there come next month. That I'll save for later on. We have the Stanley Cup playoffs getting to the latter part of round one. We already had a couple of sweeps. In fact, this has been pretty much a lackluster first round, which I will get to unpack and discover whether or not that we're going to have a very good end to this first round before we get to the end of the week. That I will talk about later. And for those who have comments, questions, whatever, please don't feel shy. Go ahead, leave them in there. I'm going to get to your comments in the next hour as I'll go through my stream of consciousness to talk about what's happening in sports. So please, people, I appreciate your patience on that. But I'm going to start off with the association, with the NBA, because when you look at this particular first round, and years past, you rarely get a very intriguing or drama-filled first round where you'd be lucky if you get one 7-game series. Hence last year when we saw Denver and the Clippers go a 7th game. Usually the first round, it's sweeps, it's 5-game series. You may get a 6-game series, but that's it. Where this time around, if you're an NBA fan or even a good sports fan, you have to like what you see here as we now get into the early part of the week, and hopefully we can get some series that will extend even into the weekend. Now, you have a scenario where in the association, I'm going to take this overall. I'm not going to go back to last night. I understand those are the games, the 4 games yesterday that are more recent. But you do have a situation where you have 2 series that are tied at 2. Another series that's 3-1, and it looks like that could be it for one team. But because of a big injury, we could see that team maybe coming back and making it a series. You also have another team that's a 1 seed that is in desperation mode, as I have a game 4 in Orlando tonight. And maybe I should start there to go east all the way to the west. And when you look at the Detroit Pistons, I know you got to be shaking your head, scratching your head, maybe even banging your head against the wall, because this team has really underachieved here in this opening round series against the Magic. Now, the interesting thing is that the Magic, who, if you recall, last year was a 7 seed, went up against the Celtics. Now, they lost in 5, but they were highly competitive, highly physical, and maybe that series of last year, with that experience and what they've been able to show at that time, albeit they were forgotten after the first round, but now they've parlayed that to a situation where now they have the Pistons, maybe not on the ropes, but they got their legs wobbled a bit. And to me, this is more of an indictment on the Pistons. I hate to say it that way, only because they are 1 seed. And we get it. They're not the bona fide one that we've seen in years past, whether that would be, let's say, OKC of the last few years, or if you want to even go way back, the Miami Heat in their heyday in the teens when they went to 4 straight NBA Finals. You could also counter with the Warriors, who were predominantly 1 seeds during that stretch, where you look at them and say, they're going to win that opening round series. Easy 4, if not 5. Shocking that it will go 6 games. And now you have a situation where the Pistons, who, although had a rugged first round against the Knicks last year and were unable to win a home game, if you recall, they lost games 3, 4, and 6 in their building, to where they went off into the spring and summer meekly. And now you have a situation where it is do or die for them tonight. Now, could they come back from a 3-1 deficit? They could. But what have you seen from this team so far in this opening round that's going to make you think that, oh, yeah, I think it's a lock that they'll either win tonight, or even if they're down 3-1, they'll win the series. Now, I feel like they're going to win the series. I think they're going to bounce back and win the night. I'd be shocked if they don't. I really would. And that's not an indictment on Orlando by any stretch, but here it is. This is a team that, with Cade Cunningham coming back from the collapse lung, as you know, or not collapse, I take that back. He had did he have? Yes, he did. Had the collapse lung issue, and he's not the problem. The big problem is their second best player, Jalen Duren, earth to their second best player. Can somebody remind them that the playoffs have begun? Because here it is, 3 games in the win there in game 2, he scored 11 points. All right, big whoop. But what about in the losses? He's averaged 8 points a game in those 2 losses, and overall in the series, he's averaged 9 points a game. If the Pistons have any shot of going anywhere in this postseason, and let's just take this first round, he's got to put up better numbers than that. Nobody's saying he has to put up 25 and 14. It'd be nice, but he has to do a whole hell of a lot better than what he's done here, because if not, they may not get out of this round alive if he continues this offensive output. So for the Pistons, again, I think they'll win tonight. I still think they'll win the series. And even if they lose tonight, I'll say that they won't win the series. I still think they can, because they are 1 seed. They can't go back to Detroit down 3-1. If they do, obviously all the pressure on the world is going to be squared on them. And I think you could even look at, if they go back to Orlando down 3-2, and yes, you could say, the pressure's on Orlando because they have to win at home. They don't want to get on a plane to go back to Detroit. Yes, you could say that too. But then, even with them getting the momentum to play a Game 7 in the building, we've already seen Orlando win in Detroit. So it's not a formality that the Pistons are going to get out of the series alive, whether tied at 2 or at worst down 3-1. So that's series number 1. Number 2 are the Knicks, and they've been a shock. Let's call it as we see it. Now, listen, they righted the ship there on Saturday night in an absolute must-win, considering that C.J. McCollum was looking like Reggie Miller there in games 2 and 3, to where they took a 2-1 lead over the Knicks. And there are a lot of people thinking that, the Knicks aren't going to get out of the series alive, and they still may not. Although I think they righted the ship behind the triple-double by Karl-Anthony Towns there on Saturday night. And Jalen Brunson, who's not had a good series shooting-wise, he is not. And, in fact, a lot of people look at him as the big culprit as to why, other than Mike Brown, of course, But the big culprit as to why the Knicks have not been successful, especially in the first 3 games of the series, but now that they have put themselves in a position where it's a best of 3, game 5 is tomorrow night, and the Knicks, I think they'll win a game 5 in their building, and they'll probably close out the series in Atlanta, although I could see Atlanta firing on all cylinders for one last go-around before a game 7 at MSG later in the week. But I think the Knicks, and I predict them to win in 6 overall. So I think with that win, and they also get an extra day off, which I think bodes well for them since they do not play tonight. They'll play tomorrow. I think the Knicks will go ahead and win their series in 6. And then the other series that now has become interesting is Cleveland and Toronto, where the Raptors, who, let's face it, they look like they were going to be a dead team walking. I get it that they lost the first 2 games in Cleveland. It was chalk, and as long as the home court is taken care of, which doesn't bode well long-term because that means they'll lose in 7. But they had that big fourth quarter there on Thursday to put themselves in a position to where they got back in the series. And then yesterday, tooth and nail, scratched and clawed to where the Raptors, who were down, what was it? They were down, I believe, 8 with less than 5 minutes to go and down 7 with 3.5 minutes ago, and they came roaring back, took the lead. And I know you had that play where Donovan Mitchell goes out of bounds where they could have had an opportunity to win the game, and they didn't. So now the Cavs and James Harden has not played well. I don't want to put it all on him just yet, but you figured you would have gotten something, at least a decent contribution from Harden there to try to get that series to 3-1. But now it's even at 2. Listen, I think the Cavs are going to win this series. It's probably going to go 7. I could see this being a full home court series, and then the Raptors will not prevail in a game 7, and then the Cavaliers will advance. That's how I see that unfolding. And then the Celtics and Sixers. I mean, what could you say after losing game 2 the way they did? And you thought to yourself, all right, this is going to be a rock fight between the 2 old rivals. But Friday night, where Tatum had the big 3 there at 103-100, and I know there were big shots that were made down the stretch, but to me, after the missed 3, I believe it was by Peyton Pritchard, and then you had Derek White, Johnny on the spot, get the rebound, kick it out. Tatum missed a 3, 106-100, and off you go as the Celtics win a big game 3 for them to put the pressure on the Sixers there last night. And what happened? Joel Embiid comes back in the lineup after the appendectomy and actually played pretty well for a guy who hasn't played in 2.5 weeks. Scored 26 points, played, I think, 32 minutes. But the Celtics were just bombing away from 3. A playoff record for them. I believe they hit 23 threes. As I've said at the beginning of the playoffs, and I've said for years with this team, if they're going to have an output from 3, and I believe their record when they shoot better than 40% from 3, and these are regular season stats, I believe they're 35-1. So you want to get to them less than 40% in order for you to win. And last night was indicative. They made 23 threes. I believe they were 48% for the game. And when you shoot, think about it. 23 threes, do the math. That's what? 69 points just on 3-pointers alone. I mean, that's going to obliterate anybody, even the best team in the sport. And Peyton Pritchard had a big game, 32 points. Jaylen Brown didn't even have to make a big-time contribution. Tatum followed up with 30 of his own. And the Celtics went away with a 30-point victory. And now they can close out their series tomorrow night at home, which I think they should. But sometimes they can stub their toes in these games, and we'll see. I think if you're Joe Mazzulla, knowing that the Knicks, their likely opponent in the second round, are going to play minimum 6 games, you say to your guys, before the Knicks take the court Tuesday night to play that game number 5, let's be over and done, get some rest, gear up, and chances are we'll see the Knicks down the road. That's it. End of story. And do I think the Sixers have any shot in hell to get back in the series? I think not. And by getting back in the series, they would have to be up by 20 points in the fourth quarter, game 6 in their building. And I don't see that happening. So that's with the East. Out West, do I even need to get into the OKC Phoenix series? That game is tonight. OKC could go for the sweep. I know that Devin Booker has said some things in regards to the refs, the officials. Listen, even if they brought back Tom Chambers, Charles Barkley circa 1993, Steve Nash, Omari Stoudemire, they're not winning this series. And they're going to get swept. And even if they have the respectable game, meaning that they show up with some toughness, some pride, and win the game, they're not winning a Game 5 in OKC. Which could be said about the Rockets last night because that's what they did. They had a game for their pride. I understand they lost in overtime on Friday night to where Ime Udoka blasted his team, and maybe that helped. No Kevin Durant again. Now, the funny thing about Durant is that he started this postseason with a right knee contusion, and then now it's his ankle. So I don't know if that was suffered during the Game 3, or excuse me, the Game 2 loss where he had 22 first-half points and he only scored 3 in the second half. Maybe that injury was sustained at that time. But the Rockets, all right, so they got their game. Who knows the status of Durant then? And who knows? Do they play on Wednesday? Let's see. They could play tomorrow night if they're going to do every other day from this point on throughout the rest of the first round. And I'll go through the schedule there toward the end of this segment. No, they get the extra day. So that could help Durant and the Rockets. We'll have to wait and see. Too early to tell. But that could be a possibility. And I'll say this. If Durant can't walk, that's one thing. But he's got the extra day. He hasn't played now since Game 2, so he's going to have a week off. He's got to at least make an attempt in this game Wednesday night. Don't you think? We understand the legacy, and I've talked about it till I'm blue in the face as far as post-Warriors, and we know he's an all-time great, yada, yada. And again, I'm not even going to go there. But can you at least suit up and give it a shot, KD, like you did in Toronto for Game 5? Now, sadly, you blew out your Achilles that night, and he actually got off to a good start in that game. Who knows? Maybe he's going to be a little reticent to think that, oh, if I go out there, then I'm really going to hurt myself. And who knows? At 37 years of age, it's not, this was in what, 2019, 7 years ago. Geez, where does the time go? When he was 31 years of age. So, but still, you'd want to see him at least go out there and give it a shot, especially if you're a Rocket fan and an NBA fan for that matter. And one more time, you see him on the bench in street clothes. We know he can walk. I understand you got to run, you got to jump, you got to cut. I get that. But you would think that, hey, I got to at least, even if I give my team 12, 15 minutes at best, try to slow it down, half court, etc. I mean, you're only getting paid $50 million a year. That's just me. But who knows for the next guy? They may, give him a break. Not on this podcast. You've listened to me long enough to know that unless you're in a walking boot, give it a shot. Anyway, the other two games, San Antonio wins the 2 games in Portland, where I know you got that scuffle there with Danny Avdija and Stephon Castle, tempers flaring. And Portland, listen, they're in the deep end of the pool. They had a great opportunity to steal Game 3. They did not. Wembanyama comes back, and he had some issues with the concussion protocol because he flew with the team. Thought he could have played there on Friday night, did not play yesterday, 27 points. He didn't miss a beat. And Portland, it was close, though. Third quarter was 78-76 until they turned the Jets and they took off and beat the Trailblazers. And now you would think they just set themselves up for an execution for a Game 5 to where the Spurs are going to win. I'd be shocked if that would have happened. And we know about the concussion. He left the game, and the Spurs had that 14-point lead before they came roaring back to win the game. And now it just looks like this is going to be a foregone conclusion that the Spurs will win there on, I guess that was what, Wednesday night they play or Tuesday? No, they'll play Tuesday night. And then the last game, and this could be the most intriguing series of all, because with the Timberwolves up 3-1 right now, but with Dante DiVincenzo out since he ruptured his Achilles, and even more so, Anthony Edwards hyperextending his knee, and thankfully it wasn't anything more damaging than that, but he could miss a couple of weeks minimum, which means that you're not going to see him for the remainder of the series. Now, is this the light that the Nuggets needed in order for them to maybe get to the end of that tunnel to where they could outlast the T-Wolves and win this series? Now, remains to be seen because the T-Wolves have dominated. And I know Jaden McDaniels came out with the comments that, they got bad defenders and they took umbrage, the Nuggets that was, but then what did you see in Minneapolis that would make you change your mind? Because they just took it to them. And even in the game 3, and I don't know, I got to make sure I pronounce this guy's name right, so I got to bring him up. But this guy coming off the bench, where with Edwards being hurt and obviously the situation with DiVincenzo, Ayo Dosunmu scored 43 points. I mean, who is this guy? Nobody could pick him out of the lineup, and all he does, and he put up not only just the big numbers, but the shooting percentage, everything. 13 for 17 from the floor, I believe, had the most points by a reserve coming off the bench in a zillion years. And I saw the graphic there too. I forgot who it was off the top of my head. Maybe if I look it up real quick, I'll tell you who that player was. But I mean, was in the water or what was in the breakfast of Dosunmu for him to have this type of effort where he pretty much blindsided his teammates. Even Julius Randle said, I didn't know he had that type of talent. And for the T-Wolves, and who knows, maybe they've uncovered a guy that maybe, at least for this round, could contribute enough offense to put the Nuggets out to pasture. But, man, and Nikola Jokic has not had good games here for his level of play, and obviously a lot of scuffles between he and Edwards, he and McDaniels there toward the end of that game. No love lost between these two teams as they faced one another a couple of years ago in the conference semis and know each other like a book. Yes, I'm trying to see who that person was. Yeah, I don't see it here. But the Sunmu had, again, a game for the ages and one that who knows if he's ever going to playoff or in the regular season for the remainder of his career. But, I mean, look at these numbers. He was 13 for 17, and I believe from 3, he was what? 5 for 5, made all of his free throws, and, yeah, played 42 minutes, and he scored 43 points. And if that's going to be the guy that's going to take over, then it may be curtains for the T-Wolves. Excuse me, for the Nuggets. But I'll say this. I think the Nuggets are going to get back in the series. They've been frustrated, aggravated, you name it. And I could see Nikola Jokic going back to doing Nikola Jokic type things. I don't know if the Sunmu, I'm sure they had no tape on this guy. Well, now they do. So they could certainly see what he was able to do against that Nugget defense. I don't know Aaron Gordon. That's going to hurt you too. He's always hurt. Who knows if he comes back? And obviously he's a big force in that lineup, more defensively than offensively. But obviously we know he can contribute offensively as well. But that was a lost trip there for the Nuggets in the Twin Cities. And I still think they'll not only come back to win a Game 5, I think they can win a Game 6. Without Edwards, now if the Sunmu's going to be a carbon copy of what he did there on Saturday, then forget about it. I mean, might as well just close out the series. But I think the Nuggets are going to be heard from. And I would not be surprised if it goes 7 games. And I'll just leave it at that. I think the T-Wolves can win the series. I mean, come on. They're up 3-1 and have home court. So they could get blown out 150 to 49. Yeah, that's right. I said it. They could lose by 101. They're still going back home and they could close out the series there in their building. But I still think that the Nuggets still have enough gas in their tank, and I think they'll come back. Not only win Game 5, but I think they'll win Game 6 too. And Game 7, as you all know, is a toss-up. So that is your NBA first round in a nutshell. Now, let me see. Is there anything else? Taylor Jenkins is now your new Milwaukee Buck head coach, which I think was a very wise move on their part. Jenkins, the former Memphis Grizzly coach, who was let go there last year. More so, it was after the All-Star break. Is it all his fault? Absolutely not. But for the Bucks, who need some sort of semblance, they need to have a guy that's going to, now, of course, has he won a championship? Does he have a big-time NBA resume? He does not, but he's a very good young coach, and I think he will stabilize what hasn't been there in the last couple of years with Adrian Griffin getting jettisoned and then bringing in Doc Rivers. So now you have a new voice, a fresh voice, a younger voice that is going to, who knows, if Giannis is still going to be there, that is going to be a big mystery this coming off season. But you have to think that bringing in a guy like Jenkins will certainly do more good than harm. So we shall see what's going to happen there with the Bucks, obviously, when we get to the latter part of the year. So that is your NBA. Let me see. Is there anything else I need to add here when it comes to the association? Anything I missed, skip, etc.? No, I pretty much got everything. Yeah, show pride, blah, blah, blah. Knicks, playoff record. Yes. So that's what we got with the NBA. Now, as far as the NHL, I'll lace up my skates to see what's happening on the ice. Let me pull that back up there, JAYREELZ. I'm going to need that. As far as the NHL, I kind of hate to admit this, but you have 2 series that are already done. You have another series that hasn't even reached the Game 4, which will be tonight in Utah, and the Mammoth are up 2-1. All right, you have Montreal, Tampa, where Tampa made a big-time comeback. They were down 2-0 going into the final minute of the second period before Jake Gunsel scored a goal to make it 2-1. And then Brandon Hagel with the 2 goals in the third, including one there with about 4.5 minutes to go, ices the game as Tampa gets out of Montreal with a split and go back home to now a best of 3. And the same could be said for Minnesota and Dallas. After Dallas gets wasted in Game 1, they win Games 2 and 3 and then lose a game number 4 to where now that's a best of series there. But other than that, it's slim pickings. Flyers were up 3-0 against Pittsburgh, but thanks to Sidney Crosby saving the day, they were able to extend that series to a 5th game in their building. Let's see what happens there, and I'll get into it in a minute. You have now Anaheim with Edmonton on the ropes, and Edmonton's just been a defensive disaster. They had to take out Connor Ingram, their goalie who started the first 3 games. They bring in Tristan Jarry. Oh, by the way, I thought the reason why you brought in Jarry was because you want to have him in the postseason and for moments like this, unlike Connor Ingram. And although Jarry played well, he was okay yesterday, but Anaheim and their onslaught and what they've been able to do, and I understand the goal there in overtime where it just passed the goal line and Edmonton was exasperated thinking that that was inconclusive. There was no way that should have been allowed as a goal, but you watch the replay, and yes, it is close, but it certainly goes past the goal line. The red lamp lights up, and that's it. Ducks are up 3-1 in the series. Edmonton, who knows if there's a situation with Connor McDavid and an injury. He has 4 points in the series, which, again, that's a point a game, but for McDavid, that is pedestrian. And you got to wonder whether or not he's hurt. Of course, he's downplaying that. He's not saying it. They have now a do-or-die Game 5 in their building. And I'll say this. For the NHL, you have no original 6 teams. Well, you still have Boston, which they're on their way out, let's face it. And Montreal's still hanging around. But you don't have New York. You don't have Toronto. You don't have Detroit. You don't have Chicago. And Boston's going to be on their way out shortly. You don't have the reigning Cup champ Panthers. And right now, it looks like you're not going to have Connor McDavid, the game's biggest star, maybe out as early as midweek. And again, if you're a hockey fan, you're going to be wrapped up in it. You're going to be following what's going to happen here throughout the rest of this postseason. But that would be an enormous hit for the sport. No other way to slice it. And not only that, but you also get the biggest threat probably to a cup where a Canadian team has not won a Stanley Cup in forever. Going back to Montreal, who will be the last team standing when you think about it, because no Vancouver, no Calgary. Edmonton is already out to sea, but who knows how far. Anaheim obviously has a say to that. You don't have the Maple Leafs. Canadians are 2-2. You may have them, but for how long, who knows? And yeah, I mean, that's been your series. And then you have Boston Buffalo. Let's get to that. Where, let's face it, should it be 2-2? I'm not going to go as far as saying that, despite the fact that the Bruins had a 2-0 lead there with about 8 minutes to go in game number 1. But they did win game 2, and they come home, and they could barely score. Last time was a complete embarrassment where they were down 6-0 before they tacked on a meaningless goal there late. Jeremy Swayman, to the chagrin of his teammates, calling them out and saying how utterly embarrassing it was. And the same for the head coach, Marco Sturm, and the Bruins, who certainly far from being big and bad, looks like they're going to be shown the door here in the next day or so. And yeah, your NHL first round has been, let's call as we see it, very lackluster. And usually it's the other way around. The NBA, because of the 1-8 and 2-7 matchups where they're dominant, and yeah, you could get a 3-6 or 4-5 go deep in the first round to where you may get a 6 or 7 game series, or maybe even 2 for that matter. Well, the NHL right now, you may get 1 game 7 if we're lucky. Maybe 2. We'll see what happens there with the Minnesota Dallas and Montreal Tampa. But it has been a brutal first round for the NHL. There's no other way to cut it. And yeah, I got to go through these schedules, which I'll do in tandem with the NHL as well. But, it has been a rough go. Listen, Ottawa gets swept. What could I talk about that series? Is there anything to discuss? I thought it was going to be Carolina in 5, and there were actually some people in the hockey circles that thought that Ottawa was going to be a bit of a threat and wouldn't have been surprised that it would have gone 7 games, let alone Ottawa upsetting. Meanwhile, Ottawa did squat in the series. And listen, Colorado and LA didn't embarrass themselves. Now, the game got out of hand there yesterday, but it was 2-1 going into the third period, and the Avalanche scored 3 goals, put the Kings out of their misery. And, I mean, what do you say about those 2 series? Those are the 2 top teams in the sport, each in their respective conferences, and now they move on. No big whoop there. The question marks now are as follows. Does Montreal or Minnesota, do they win 1 road game and take care of their home games in order for them to advance? To me, that's a big question because we don't know both of those series are best of 3. Utah and Vegas. Now, I haven't really watched that series closely, I got to admit, and I know they had the first playoff game in Utah there ever. But as it is, Utah is looking more like a team that is pumped up, ready to go, and maybe Vegas playing on their heels a bit, taking the Mammoth lightly. I could see Vegas winning this game tonight. Although Utah, you never know. Does the Mammoth win this series? Whatever. I think I had originally the Knights in 6. Let me see that. Yeah, I may have said 6. I don't have that typed down here because I remember I had recorded that for the channel. So, yeah, that's what you have. Yeah, I don't think any of these series. And think about this. It's funny as I look at my little notes here. Boston had a 1-0 lead in game 3 and had a penalty shot, Victor Arvidsson, which could have been up 2-0 in the game. Missed the penalty shot, actually sailed wide. And since then, they've outscored the Bruins 9-1. So I don't want to say that was a bad omen by him missing that penalty shot, but who knows how that game would have gone, and maybe the series for that matter, if Arvidsson was able to deliver there on that penalty shot. So, but we'll never know. Now, yeah, we talked about the Avs. I know this is the end for Anze Kopitar, the longtime King, won 2 Stanley Cups, goes off into retirement. And the Kings, you wonder what they're going to do this offseason to try to, I'll just say, retool this team to get them to a point where they could at least get past the first round. We know they faced Edmonton in all these first rounds here, especially over the last couple, and they weren't able to get out alive. Obviously, this series was the same. But, yeah, other than that, I mean, you don't really have much to draw from. You could only hope that in the Montreal, Tampa, and Minnesota, Dallas series that they could go 7. We'll see if Vegas can get back in the series against Utah, because if not, they're down 3-1. Do you expect Utah to spit it up? Maybe, maybe not, but hasn't been as intriguing of a first round as I thought it would be. We all know I could change at the drop of a hat, and you know that I'll be on top of that. But let's go through your schedules here, though, with the NBA and NHL. I'll start with the NHL, though. Schedule starting tonight. You have 2 games. Philly at Pittsburgh, 7 o'clock ESPN, followed by Vegas at Utah at 9:30. Then tomorrow, Boston at Buffalo, TNT. Minnesota at Dallas, that's on ESPN 2. And then Anaheim at Edmonton rounds out the TNT True TV coverage there as Edmonton tries to stay alive. And then on Wednesday, Utah at Vegas, Montreal, Tampa, Pittsburgh at Philly. And then for good measure, Edmonton at Anaheim Game 6 on Thursday, as well as Dallas at Minnesota. So that is your NHL schedule for the week. And the NBA, tonight, Detroit and Orlando, big-time matchup, big time as the Pistons need to step up. OKC Phoenix, you know how I feel about that series. Minnesota at Denver as they try to hang on and stay alive, which I think they will. Tomorrow, Philly at Boston on ESPN, 7 o'clock. Atlanta at New York on NBC and Peacock. And then Portland at San Antonio, 9:30 ESPN. And then Wednesday, Orlando at Detroit, Prime Video. Toronto at Cleveland, ESPN. Houston at LA, ESPN at 10 o'clock. And then 9:30 is Phoenix at Oklahoma City, if necessary. And then Thursday, you'll have San Antonio and Portland, New York at Atlanta, Denver at Minnesota, and Boston at Philly, if necessary. So that is your NHL. Just checking to see if there's anything else that I missed. No, that's it. All right. So I've thought about what should I talk about next. Should I get into the NFL draft? Nah, let's wait on that. I'm going to go right to the baseball as I get to the batter's box. And here's what we got, people. The big story of the weekend was Alex Cora getting fired by the Red Sox. And a lot of reports have come out over the last 2 days where Craig Breslow, the GM of the team, not only fired Cora on Saturday, but he also fired 5 of his coaching staff in the process, to where the players, in particular Trevor Story, had come out to say, what direction is this team going to go? I had the utmost respect and admiration for these guys and thought they were some of the best in the game. And then now that's it, over and out. And I got news for you. He's right, because Craig Breslow is in the same wagon, in my eyes, as David Stearns, because, yes, he did bring in pitching this offseason by acquiring Sonny Gray, signing Ranger Suarez. You bring in Johan Oviedo from Pittsburgh, but another guy, where the contributions, and did not address the offense to where he relied so heavily on guys like Roman Anthony and Marcelo Meyer, where he let Alex Bregman walk, and I'm sure could have been in the running to bring in Pete Alonso, which would have been just a sight to behold with the monster seats out there and hitting them onto Lansdowne Street. But they relied too heavily on their younger players to the point where their offense, now granted, once they fired him, they scored 17 runs there on Saturday, where they pounded the Orioles, and then they closed out the series with a win there yesterday. So they're 2-0 under the new manager. And that being Chad Tracy, the former Major League player who's also the AAA manager of Worcester for the Red Sox, and been so since 2022. But to me, he got hosed. Let's call it as we see it. Cora should have never gotten fired. I get it. There's going to be a fall guy and a scapegoat or whatever you want to call it. But this falls more on Brezel than it does Cora. He doesn't even have an offense to work with. Shall I even read you off the lineup? And I'll go by yesterday because Saturday, that's where they got a million home runs. Duran, fielder. You know who he is. Won an All-Star MVP a few years back. 189. Wilson Contreras. All right, 253. He's had, I think, 4 or 5 home runs. 253 is not lights out, but okay. Roman Anthony, over 3 in the game yesterday, 217. Wilyer Abreu, who right now is their best hitter at 298. 1 for 3 and an RBI. Ceddanne Rafaela, batting 276. All right, you could say he's doing well. Marcelo Meyer, 224. Chad Durbin, at third baseman, 169. And, yeah, I want to get to some other guys, though. All right, but this Red Sox offense is from hunger. And the pitching hasn't held up their end of the bargain either. But I just thought Cora got a raw deal here, and this is not all on him. You want to say maybe get to the Memorial Day break? All right, fine. I'll give you that. But, And I knew something had to be done, but, again, I thought it was just premature. That leads us to the Mets, which obviously have been the hot-button topic here for weeks now, the 12-game losing streak. They did win 2 in a row at home against Minnesota, the back end of that start of the homestand. And then now Colorado comes into the weekend. Colorado, who I picked as an under. Colorado, who lost 119 games last year. Colorado, a team that you couldn't pick out of a lineup. They come into New York, 3 games, a washout on Saturday, but they win 4-3 on Friday night. The Rockies then sweep the doubleheader over the Mets yesterday, where the Mets scored a measly 1 run. And you know me, I've been on the David Stearns, get him out of town. I've had enough. Theo Nathaniel Epstein, which obviously is not going to happen anytime soon. It's just a pipe dream. But after that performance, and I posted yesterday, and I don't think anything's going to happen. Let me see. Has there been a report yet? Because you figure a day off, dust settles, cooler heads, kind of get an idea. Not the case. But I really felt that if the Mets weren't going to score a run, and they didn't, in the second game of that doubleheader, that Mendoza doesn't see Tuesday night where the Nationals come to town, that he was going to get let go. Well, right now they still have him. And I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing. But again, this all begins and ends with the GM. The roster configuration, the run production with defense. We know how atrocious that is. You could talk about Edwin Diaz not resigning him or Pete Alonso, whatever. But get all that. But I am surprised that at this very moment of this recording that Mendoza's not fired. That's not to say he deserves it. That's not to say he should be. But getting swept by the Rockies and in the back 2 games in one day, scoring 1 run, it is beyond unacceptable. There's no way to defend it. There's no way to even think that, oh, he deserves another week. Nonsense. I thought that if they would have went into the series with Colorado, if they would have lost those 2 games, that he was going to be gone then. Now, mind you, the losing streak would have been 14 games in a row. But even after those 2 wins, you have a team that is not going to be anywhere near wild card contention, let alone playoff contention. And the Mets scored 1 run. And no one's head is rolling. To me, it just goes to show you how bad that the Mets are being run at this very moment. That's the only way I can equate it to. And to think, to make matters even worse, as if it wasn't just bad only for the Mets, as having the not only just one of the worst records in the sport, but mired in last place with the Phillies, another team who's 9-19. They haven't gotten double-digit wins just yet. And the Phillies, who have lost 5 of 6 over the last 2 weekends to the Braves. This past weekend, they lost 2 of 3. And Rob Thomson, I don't know. I hope you're renting and you didn't buy. I mean, that's all I could say. You talk about a team that's underachieved. It's the Phillies. Trey Turner can't hit his way out of a wet paper bag. They cut Taijuan Walker. I understand, no big deal at the end of the day, but why? All of a sudden, he's the fall guy for all the Phillies' problems. Bryce Harper, 254, got the bat that's a situation where, got the bat. I'm just trying to gather my thoughts here, people. My apologies. But they've been atrocious. I mean, that's all there is to it. And you wonder whether or not Rob Thomson is at the edge of that plank, either further along than Mendoza, side by side, or maybe Mendoza right now has a half step ahead. But think about this. The Met and Philly roster combined, 18 wins, $695 million, and they are both, as of right this very second, it's not even May 1st. We're still, if you include today, 4 days from May 1st. And both the Mets and Phillies are 10 back in the loss and 10.5 overall. In fact, the Braves have the biggest distance and the best record in the sport, I might add. Biggest distance for any division leader. Athletics 1 game over Texas. Detroit and Cleveland are tied. Yankees are 1 in the loss, a game and a half ahead of the Rays. Cincinnati, a 1 game lead, and the Dodgers, a half game lead. And the Padres played the Diamondbacks over the weekend in that Mexico series, and they split. That's why if they would have played on Friday, they would have had an extra game, and who knows whether they'd be tied or a full game back. And as we go through it, because, and listen, I'll say this. Who's going to get fired first? I don't believe Mendoza should. But right now, after that performance, and look, and they got the Nationals coming in. So this would be more of a layup to bring in the next manager now and have him go up against the national team, who I can't even say, as much as I can laugh and say, oh, the Nationals are coming to town. Nationals have a way better record than the Mets, and they're 3 games under 500. I tell you. I don't even know what to say. But anyway, as I go through the sport, is there any other big news happenings? Yeah, we talked about Story. Yeah, we talked about Breslow's call. And I see the Yankees are calling up Jason Dominguez. All right, so you got that going on. But here's the thing. When we look throughout baseball now, as we're a month into the season officially, here's what you got. And I'll go from AL East on down. Yankees, as I mentioned, they have a game and a half lead. Now, they lost to the Astros yesterday after winning 8 in a row. I know all the Yankee fans were up in arms and, hey, well, look at this. And, hey, we've won 8 in a row. And the rematch with the Dodgers is imminent. And, nonsense. Get back to me when you play better teams. Because when you sweep the Royals, who are 11-17, and the Red Sox, who are 11-17, and even with the Astros winning yesterday, 11-18, do the math. That is 33-52. So if the Yankee fan can puff their chest out and say, well, hey, you can only beat the teams that are in front of you. And yeah, you're right about that. But can you beat some teams that are at least out of last place? Can we start there? And that's why I laugh at the Yankee fan. And they want to laugh at the Mets and they want to troll the Mets. Look at the Mets. They're 12 in a row and last place and 9-19. And look at us. We're 18-10. Let's get the parade route ready. And let's start printing up these World Series tickets. And we're running it back. And we still got Cole coming back and Carlos Rodon and Stanton's on the IL again, by the way. And this, that, the third. Ben Rice. Hey, the Yankees. We don't need anybody else. We're going to be flying high, whatever. And who knows? They're going to probably have another cakewalk through an American League because the American League is weak as hell, as we know. I mean, look at who the first place teams are. I'll give you the Tigers and the Guardians. They're always there. But the Athletics, they're in first place. What happened to Seattle this year? It's going to be another cakewalk until they get to a buzzsaw, whether it is the Dodgers, whether that is, dare I even say, Atlanta. Please. Until the Yankees play teams of some note. And one more time. If it wasn't for Jordan Romano 2 weeks ago when the Angels were at Yankee Stadium, they would have been in the midst of a 9-game losing streak prior to them facing the Royals. So for the Yankee fan that's puffing their chest out, pipe down. So that's number one. And by the way, the Rays, the team behind them, you got swept by them in Tampa. So number two, pipe down. Yeah, Orioles, they can't get out of their own way. Same for the Blue Jays. I know with their injuries, but at least the Blue Jays here, they got the back 2 games against the Guardians, and they have the Red Sox coming to town, so we'll see what happens there. Athletics, listen, they get hit. They can't really pitch. The game up on Texas, Seattle. All right, listen, I'll give Seattle some credit here because they did sweep the Cardinals, and hopefully maybe this will get them on track and find their way. But the West is right now up for grabs. You would think Seattle's going to take over when it's all said and done. Then you have the Braves, 6.5 games lead over the Marlins, like I mentioned. Nationals, Phillies, Mets. Yes, we talked about that. Brewers have come crashing down. And the Cardinals, too, as we talked about, as they got swept. But Reds are 18-10, Cubs 17-11. And they just finished having a 10-game winning streak in their own right before losing to the Dodgers, the back 2 in L.A. So the Cubs got cooled off there a little bit. But Pirates is 16-12. And Cardinals and Brewers, both teams still over 500. In fact, that whole division's over 500. And then you have the Dodgers, a half game over the Padres, who had that Mexico series where they split. Then you have the Diamondbacks, who are still playing pretty well. Giants and Rockies, they're world beaters right now. And the Rockies sweeping the Mets. I still can't. But that's your baseball right now. And as far as your schedule for the early part of the week, Tampa at Cleveland, St. Louis at Pittsburgh, Boston at Toronto, Angels in Chicago to play the White Sox, Seattle, Minnesota, Yankees at Texas, Chicago, San Diego, Miami at LA to play the Dodgers. And let me think for a second. No, I think that's it. I thought I was going to come up with something, but I might as well not. Let me see. Then you got Houston at Baltimore, Mets hosting Washington, as you know. I want to make sure I got all the series. San Francisco at Philadelphia, Kansas City at the Athletics. Yeah, those are the Arizona at Milwaukee. So that's the remainder of your schedule. Detroit at Atlanta. All right, first place there. So, yeah, so that's your baseball. And then on to the NFL as I lace up the cleats. And for those who have comments, don't worry, I'll get to them there in the next let's see. Yeah, I'll get to them about 11:40. So if you can hang tight, I'd appreciate it as we move it along here. Now, here's what I'm going to say about the NFL draft. As I put on the helmet and shoulder pads, we'll go through it. a big-time reception out in Pittsburgh. They set the record. They had, over 800,000 people attend. The first night had 350,000. Almost looked like they were at a Live Aid concert. I know we've seen in Green Bay, we've seen big turnouts, etc., but that was a sight to behold there in Pittsburgh, especially on Thursday night. But if anybody's looking for a grade, winners, losers, etc., I've been long past that, people. And I'm not doing that to try to shirk my responsibility as a podcast host or try to just punt the NFL draft to the side or get on the NFL. I'm not going to do that. But the one thing I will say is we could go through every draft known by man. And yes, there are some takeaways and there are some situations where you're going to think, oh, wow, I think they drafted poorly. And you can have your opinion, etc., 1,000%. But here's all you need to know about me trying to dissect this draft carefully and peruse through teams or the winners and losers, if you want to call it. In the first round, Mel Kiper, who is everybody looks at as the draft god, and no knock on Mel, just calling it as I see it. His mock draft netted 3 correct answers. 4 total, but Mendoza, everybody knew Mendoza was going to be the first player chosen. But only got 3 others right. And Peter Schrager got 4 right after Mendoza. And Schrager's a guy that I admire and respect. But you mean to tell me that we're going to take heat from guys who, yes, they watch more college football than anybody on the planet, but only get 4 of the selections right? Not to say they had to get 20 of the 32 or even half, but could you give me more than 4 or 5? Could you give me 10? Could you give me 12? And we understand this is all a crapshoot, but that is the point. It is a crapshoot. We can't grade this until we get 2 or 3 years down the road. And here is the case in point. Look at the 2023 draft by the LA Rams. They drafted Byron Young, I believe in the second round. Let me see if I can pull this up real quick. Well, that could have been an early 3rd round pick. And they also drafted Kobe Turner, defensive lineman, 3rd round. Do you know who else they got in the 5th round of that draft? Oh, yeah, the wide receiver, who arguably is the best one in the sport. That being Puka Nacua. Did anybody back then say, oh, the Rams, I don't know how they did in this draft. Puka Nacua, who's this guy? Why would they draft him? Huh? So therefore, I am not going to sit here. I'll give you some takeaways, no doubt. But I'm not going to sit here and go through every team and break down every position that was needed, etc., in order for me to quantify or even justify that, oh, this team was a winner. Oh, that team was a loser. Oh, this was the whatever. And to me, I don't want to waste your time in that regard. But with that being said, there are some things that I want to discuss. My team, of course, but when we take a look, and I just want to make sure I at least have the first round here up. But the NFL, we could look at the reach by the Chiefs at 6, taking the corner from LSU. And they moved up because remember, they had the 9th pick. They moved up there. And what do they swap? I think we're Cleveland, if I'm not mistaken. So they get the corner. And we know that the Kansas City Chiefs, who traded Trent McDuffie away, so they had to replenish that. Now, we could say it's a reach because that pick, a lot of people thought they was going to go in the first round, but was he going to go as high as 6? I don't think so. But they drafted a need, and they got a guy that they feel is going to deem fit for their secondary. And is he going to end up being the next D. Milner, the Alabama corner that was drafted by the Jets? And there's a case in point. When the Jets drafted D. Milner and they needed cornerback help, and they thought, oh, well, he was good in Alabama, comes from that pedigree of Nick Saban, winning championships, this, that, whatever. All right, even if he's not an all-pro, well, you think he's going to be a Pro Bowl cornerback, a steady cornerback for the next 10 years. Where's D. Milner today? So that's why you can't look at these drafts right off the bat and think that, this was a slam dunk, this was an A+, or this was an F, like Stephen A. said about the Steelers, and I'll get to that in a minute. So, to me, I'm not going to look at Mansour Delane and say, that was dumb. Who knows how this kid's going to turn out? Yeah, it doesn't look good on paper because it is a reach. And the same can be said about Ty Simpson, the Alabama quarterback who got drafted by the Rams, where Sean McVay was outraged, thinking that they're going to get a player that can help out for this coming year, knowing that the Rams were that close to going to the Super Bowl, and they have the next Super Bowl in SoFi, and Stafford coming back for another year, and you would have thought that, yeah, let's bring in somebody that's going to help now immediately to get us to the promised land and hopefully win another Super Bowl. But Les Snead, I went back to that 2023 draft. We saw how great that was. And maybe Simpson is a bit of a reach. Undersized. He's not Ben Roethlisberger or Josh Allen when it comes to his height and weight. But Simpson has a bit of a resume. A playoff win against Oklahoma. Maybe it's an indictment on Oklahoma's defense, but down 17-0 second quarter. Went for it on 4th and 2. They got a touchdown, and they were able to take off from there. And played well in Athens to beat Georgia on the road, to win at Auburn, to pretty much propel them to get into the playoff. I mean, you got all these scenarios where Simpson does have ability. And who knows if McVay's going to be there past next year. But Stetson Bennett, not going to be the guy that they drafted years ago who won a national championship at Georgia, or a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo, who, from what we've read here over the last few days, looks like he's going to go off into the sunset and retire. So they need to get a quarterback. They figured out, let's see if we could get our guy here. And I know Makai Lemon was a guy that a lot of people thought that a USC in their backyard, get another receiver, was the guy. Was not. So that's another storyline that you could take, or there's another takeaway from that. A lot of people didn't like the Giant draft. All right, Sonny Styles, they could have drafted there. A lot of people thought they wanted him. They took Arvell Reese. Styles was a guy that looked like it was going to be automatic. No problem. Reese, maybe a little bit more versatile, bigger, better body, but it's unknown. And with the Jets taking David Bailey, the pass rusher from Texas Tech, people said, they could have gotten Arvell Reese. Well, they figured that Bailey was an automatic as far as a pass rusher, where Reese, although maybe could be multifaceted, but is a guy that, who knows his motor and who knows if his body's going to break down, etc. And the Giants, all right, so they get Arvell Reese. I thought, very solid pick, but they didn't like that they took the offensive tackle from Miami, where they could have gone maybe wide receiver there. I understand what's called off the board. They even actually could have taken Caleb Downs as a safety and would have ruined the plans for the Cowboys. And a lot of people think that between he and Malachi Lawrence, the Cowboys, they upgraded their defense and their draft exponentially. Downs, you think, is a lock? Lawrence, we'll see. From DeMarcus to Malachi, they can only hope he can play as good as Dexter did when he was a member of the Cowboys. And even the Jets, for that matter. You can look at what they did by bringing in or drafting David Bailey. And they got the kid from Oregon, the tight end, there with their next pick. And that was what, 16? Let me scroll down. And they also got another pick later on, Kenyon Sadiq. Later on, they draft Omar Cooper Jr. as they made a trade to move up to get him. They also drafted Cade Klubnik, the quarterback from Clemson, who I'm not in love with, but hey. So a lot of people are going to think that the Jets did well, but we don't know. The Jets are the Jets. Now let me get to Makai Lemon, because the Steelers actually had him on the phone. And what happened? The Eagles leapfrogged them, traded with the Cowboys. And they drafted Lemon, which we all know, another worst kept secret. A.J. Brown's going to be gone out of Philadelphia. So then the Steelers drafted the kid, and I know I'm bad with names, Max Ahinature. I think that's how you pronounce it. Arizona State, where Stephen A. Smith's coming out saying that, the Steelers got an F because they didn't move up in the draft. They didn't get the wide receiver, and they got an offensive tackle. Stephen A., you're a Steeler fan, right? Have you heard of the name Alan Faneca? Name ring a bell? How about David DeCastro? Two of those guys, and they were guards. They weren't even tackles. Those guys were drafted in the first round with their first pick. Faneca is only a Hall of Famer, and DeCastro is a 3-time All-Pro, 2-time first team, and 1-time second team. So I would say very good career, DeCastro, and Hall of Fame career for Faneca, and won a Super Bowl in 05. And listen, I understand you also have guys like Jermaine Stevens in 96, who, nowhere to be found. And he was actually a converted defensive lineman to an offensive lineman. So that was a terrible pick by the Steelers. And again, that was 30 years ago. But and Troy Fatanu, I understand, jury's still out, injury plagued first year. Let's see what happens here. And to me, that was a safe pick because they knew with Broderick Jones and his health that they had to bring in a guy that, all right, they didn't get their wide receiver. They got him in the next round with Jeremy Bernard from Alabama. And in the third round with Drew Aller, the quarterback from Penn State, who I do not love. Now, there's a guy that has size, arm strength, etc. But to me, can the guy win? 1-6 against top-ranked teams. I believe top 10 teams in the country. And if you're a Steelers fan, you can't be happy with that. So, and we can go through the rest of their draft. But to me, those top 3 picks, they get the receiver, etc. I got another receiver later on. I got a corner. But you can't look to think that, this is a terrible draft, or, this is a great draft. It's also, yeah, we can talk about that from the periphery, but we're not going to know fully until we get 2-3 years down the road. Now, when I was in my 20s and early 30s going to the draft, it was, hey, all right, that was a bad pick. That was this. All right, we get that. But, and you can talk about that from the surface, but anything deeper than that you guys know or feel or think that, this was a waste, or, I can't believe this or that, whatever. You don't. Because as I said a few minutes ago, if Mel Kiper, and I'm just going to shout him out, if Mel Kiper's a guy that knows all these players inside out, upside down, back and forth, from here to Timbuktu, and he can only get 4 of the picks on his mock draft, then what does that tell you? And I bet you if you go back to the 2023 draft, especially with the Rams, where did he have Puka Nacua? Probably had him on his mock draft. Maybe he had him as a 3rd-round pick for all we know. Maybe didn't even have him at all. And it would be a downright shame if he didn't have him. And as a matter of fact, I'll look that up after the podcast. But you just don't know with this. And yeah, it's great banter with other NFL fans to go back and forth, to talk about it, etc. But the bottom line is you just don't know. And therefore, I'm not going to cast any judgment, etc. Listen, I got to talk about the Browns draft. I know the Browns draft, they look like they drafted some good players. They got the offensive tackle, and then they also moved up. Well, no, this was the trade. They moved back. They get the wide receiver from Texas A&M, Casey Concepcion. A lot of people think he's going to be pretty good. But yeah, is anybody watching A&M football? I get it that they're in the SEC, but are you saying on a week-in, week-out basis, oh yeah, I know Casey Concepcion like the back of my hand? Come on. Who are you fooling, guys? And yeah, I mean, we go through the list of all these teams and how they made out. But the only way we're going to know is when we start watching them in games. Until then, You could be happy, you could be unhappy. But as I said before, and I'll say one last time, you never know. I think that's it with the NFL. Let me just double check. Yeah, Simpson, Steelers. Oh, should I even get into this? Mike Vrabel. Yeah, I said I was going to talk about this. So real quick on Vrabel before I get to my last thing. As you know, I'm not the morality police. I'm not here to condemn him. I'm not here to criticize him, etc. But the one thing I will say is this. After his press conference, and he says, oh, no more talk about it, whatever. And little did he know, and the rest of us knew that there were some pictures dating back that the Post had from 2020 and 2024. Mind you, he was with Tennessee at the time. But when you have more evidence of stuff that certainly does not look good for you, and then the day after, you're going to talk about how, I'm not going to be around for the third day of the draft because I'm going to go to counseling. I'm going to get the help that I need, whatever. And that's a great thing. I get it. But after the fact, did you not think of counseling prior to in your press conference to say, yeah, I need to be a better husband, coach, this, that. There's some things they need to clean up, and I don't want to talk about it further. And I get it. He didn't have to reveal whether or not he was going to go for counseling then. But considering that in his monologue or him discussing what had taken place with the athletic writer Diana Rossini, who has been let go since, and now that these other photos have surfaced, it's like, oh, wait, let me come back. Sorry, guys. Hey, it's me again, Mike Vrabel. Oh, by the way, I'm not going to be around for day 3 of the draft because I'm going to start counseling. Comes across as a little disingenuous, if you ask me. All right? And again, it's not that you had to announce it when your opening monologue, what was that? I guess it was last Monday or the Monday prior to that, or the week prior to. But now all of a sudden, damage control. Hey, guys, it's me again. It's a bad optic. Doesn't look good. Sorry. Because whether you're going to counseling or not, prior to this coming out, it just makes you look foolish. Because now it's a scenario where people actually think that he should be, if not suspended, maybe even fired. I won't go as far as saying fired. This isn't because there's some people online that says, oh, wait a minute, how does Ime Udoka or Sharon Moore, the Michigan coach, and of course the Rockets coach, who at the time was with the Celtics, how do they get fired and Vrabel doesn't? Well, with the Celtics and with Michigan, there are rules to not get involved with anyone on the staff or within the organization to have a relationship with. Prohibited. You're done if you do so. And with Sharon Moore, he got even to a next level because, as you all know, went to the house, breaking and entering, got arrested, whatever it was, the whole nine. Not to rehash that whole thing. Mike Vrabel didn't commit any crimes. Mike Vrabel did not disobey any rules within his contract or within the rules of the organization as far as having an extracurricular relationship with somebody within the organization. Diana Rossini is a writer. Now, he's got to own up to his peccadillos, and this is more than a peccadillo, where he got caught with Rossini, the owners' meetings there about, 10, 12 days ago, however long it was, 2 weeks. And now the mea culpa in front of his family, in front of his teammates, in front of his owner, everything obviously doesn't look good. And even after the fact, looks worse with the other stuff going back 4 and 6 years ago. But the Patriots, that wasn't on their watch. And even this thing with Rossini. Now, it would say something if Robert Kraft came out and says, Mike, I got to suspend you for the opening game of next season. Which would be almost a discipline, conduct detrimental to the team. Because let's face it, the coach is other than the owner, of course, and the GM, but the coach is the face of your team. He's the guy that's supposed to lead the 53-man roster. And for him to go out on his wife and have whatever he had with Diana Rossini, whether it was platonic, whether it was in as much as it was to be, even with the hug and the fingers interlocked, it's not a good look. And I think he should get suspended. Just a game. Nobody's saying that, oh, there's a 4-game suspension. Oh, he should get fired. He didn't break any rules. So I don't think he should be terminated. Now, who knows? If there's other things that come out, maybe, listen, I'm not going to speculate or whatever, but if other stuff starts to come out where Mike Vrabel's looking like, I hate to say this, Tiger Woods, then you got something. Then it's like, whoa, we can't have a guy on a team that's just been with a writer and now with maybe some of the training staff or the athletic staff or who knows, the marketing team or with accounting, who knows? But, hope I didn't lose you guys. If it lost me, my apologies. But yeah, it's just Vrabel now's got a, no pun intended, made his bed, he's got to lie in it. So now let me get to my last thing. I'll break out of the tennis racket, and then let me get your comments. A huge hit for the French Open without Carlos Alcaraz, the defending French Open champ, I might add, where he has an ailing wrist, said that he's going to have to step down, and he's not going to play in the preceding tournament, which I believe is the Italian Open in Rome. And the French Open, which I believe starts 3 weeks from today. I got to look at the calendar. I think that's May 15th. Let me think. Yeah, I think that's 3 weeks from today it begins. And without having him there, it is it's not even a huge hit. It is a gigantic hit. Because when you think about the last three, or really not the Australian, when you date back to last year, French, Wimbledon, and U.S. Open, your final was Alcaraz and Sinner. And then this year, because at the Australian, Djokovic picked off Sinner, so you had a Djokovic and Alcaraz final. I would think and I would hope that the people there who run the tournament and start to put up the seeds and the brackets, that they have Djokovic on the other side of the bracket where we could potentially see them in a final. Because without Alcaraz there, they have to put him there. I mean, if he's in the same draw as Sinner, where they may meet up in a semifinal, then why just give the title to Sinner? Because who else on the men's side is going to come back to win? Daniil Medvedev, Andrei Rublev, Casper Ruud, Holger Rune, Tommy Paul, Taylor Fritz. Any of these guys have a shot? Oh, of course they're going to have a shot, but I mean, seriously. These guys who are in a different stratosphere from Sinner, Alcaraz, and even Djokovic for that matter. And Djokovic's what? I think he's going to turn 39 this year. So as much as you want to call out and say this and that about, not having Alcaraz there, it's all right. The sport's going to be fine, at least for this. It's not in the least. And this is why they got to get Alcaraz, this is why they got to get Djokovic on the other side of the draw. Because if not, the men's tournament there at Roland Garros is going to be a snooze fest. And it's just a shame they're not going to see Alcaraz there, A, to defend his title, but B, maybe have another collision course with he and Sinner, just like you saw last year, and which was one of the all-time great matches there where Alcaraz was down 0-2 and actually was down, I believe, at set and championship break in that final match. And even in the fourth set, I believe, one of the great matches you'll ever see, but you're not going to see them at least here in the French. And who knows? Wimbledon is soon thereafter, but we still have time between now and then to see whether or not Alcaraz will be healed and ready to go there at the All England Club. All right, let me get your comments. Yeah, Dylan, am I talking? Yeah, I am talking about stuff. Vlado. Greetings to you all. I can't be in this live. I have guests. Oh, that's all right. Daughter won gold. Congratulations. Oh, wow. That is awesome. Denver is out. Oh, you don't like Denver? That's interesting. Based on everything I said, I don't know if you stuck around for that, Vlado. But Vlado, I appreciate you. And please, my thoughts, prayers, regards, all to your mom, Marjana. Always got to shout her out. Let's see. Val, of course, liking the lives. Oh, I got 7 likes already. Oh, look at that. Show my shorts. That's good. Uh-oh. How is it? Is that how coaches get fired? And yeah, generally it's the general manager. Could be the owner at times, as we saw with James Dolan when they fired Tom Thibodeau last year. But no, that's a good one there, Val. Generally, it's the GM. They're going to be the ones responsible for hiring and firing the managers or head coaches, whomever that may be. So that's what you have with that situation. What about your Giants? Oh, listen, they played better. They come east to play the Phillies, and who knows? The Phillies are in worse shape than the Giants, so maybe they can win 2 out of 3 and continue their good vibes and good feels. Dante, yes, he did. He is done. Toast. No DiVincenzo for the rest of this postseason. And Edwards got a bone bruise. Yes, but that was due to the hyperextension of his left knee, which was ugly when you watched it live and even the replay. But that's why I think that series is still there for the taking, especially for the Nuggets. But they got a lot of work ahead of them, not having Edwards on the lineup for the T-Wolves. Yes. And when is that game? Cowboys-Ravens in Rio? Oh, they're probably not going to have it yet. Is the Cowboy? That game. Oh, they got it September 27th. As far as the NFL Week 3 schedule, this historic matchup is set up to kill at 425. I'll be on CBS and Paramount. So Sunday, Week 3. And that will be Ravens. Cowboys. That's a home game for the Cowboys because remember, the NFC has the extra game this year. So therefore, they could take that game and put it internationally because the Cowboys, they'll get their 8 home games regardless. So that's what you have. And they already have the game on CBS. And that's another thing. The schedule will come out in about 2 weeks, and that's going to put a stranglehold on the sports world, even in the middle of the NBA, Stanley Cup playoffs, and who knows with baseball. So, yeah, we'll keep that in mind as we move it along. Let's see. Senior VP. Well, Chris Patrick. Yeah, and that's for the, what is that? I need a nape. Uh-oh. I changed from chia seeds to... Yeah, I hate that too, Fuqua. AKA Everyday Mets, Tatsuya Mai, Minnesota Fats, Cowboy Bull, Rhoda Penmark, Jonathan Shonkup, J-Rod. Is Stephen A. Smith the Steelers fan? Yeah, so-called. And, you know, Stephen A. Smith said something the other day which really pissed me off. Can I talk about that for a second? So Stephen A., at the end, I was fast-forwarding through First Take because Russo was on. I wanted to hear what he had to say about a couple of things. So I was fast-forwarding it to the end. And what were they talking about? Well, anyway. Oh, I know what they're talking about. They're talking about baseball and opening day. For a trivia question, because they're going to have Sports Jeopardy, I believe, on ESPN, and Joe Buck's doing it, which I guess I got to get on board for that. But for Stephen A. Smith to come out and say, I'm a modern guy, I only follow, he didn't say follow, but he goes, whatever has happened in the past 20 years, that's what I'm up on. I'm up on that stuff. Stephen A. is older than me. And I get it. He's got to be a prisoner of the moment. But this is the problem with people like him. You would think he wants to get into the history of the sport or sports. You would think he wants to go into the weeds on certain things. No, he's got to appeal to the younger folk. He's got to appeal to what the networks and the suits there at the network are going to want. They're going to want younger audiences. They don't want to hear about Johnny Bench and the Big Red Machine in the 70s. They don't want to hear about the Drive for Five Islanders. Dare they even talk hockey? They don't want to hear. Think about this. They didn't want to hear about the 90s Cowboys of Troy Aikman, Emmitt Smith, Michael Irvin, Darren Woodson, Charles Haley. They don't want to hear that. And they can't get enough of the Cowboys on that network. But no, that's too old. We can't talk about that. Disgusts me in so many ways, shapes, form, and fashion. And for him to say that, yes, I think the Pistons win tonight. I still think they'll win the series. If they lose tonight, though, I don't know, man. Could somebody wake up Jalen Duren and tell him that the playoffs began? Here's the question. Fuqua, all I'll say is this. It should be Mendoza at this point. And, you know, it's me. I'll drive to Citi Field to get David Stearns out of here. But how does your team, the team that you manage, against the Colorado Rockies in your building, how do you not only get swept, but in the last two games score one run? I know your offense is terrible. I know it's bad. I know they've been shut out a million times here, and we're not even into May. But who on the Colorado Rockies pitching staff are you going to be afraid of or scared of or have you shaking in your boots and be like, oh, they are not facing Randy Johnson, Kurt Schilling of the 0-1 Diamondbacks. And dare I even say, let's go back, a history reference. They are not the awesome foursome of the 70 Orioles of Jim Palmer, Dave McAnally, Pat Dobson, excuse me, and Mike Cuellar. Look those guys up. Those guys, 4 pitchers on that staff, won 20 games each. Last I checked, the Rockies do not have a rotation like that. But they came in here and they shut down the Mets. So my answer, Mendoza, you got to go. Yeah. Val thinks so. I feel like I got my butt kicked getting up at 3 a.m. Well, that's what it is. You shook out the cobwebs a little bit because it's been a while. And that's all. But now you got it out of your system. I'm sure as the weeks are forthcoming and the tournaments pop up, that you'll be back to normal. Your sleep schedule, your everything. Yeah, that's it. You know, eat healthy. Little walk around the block a couple times. That should do it, right? Probably they may lose tonight. If they lose tonight, they're done. Yeah, I would probably think so. Although, and listen, Orlando's played well. You got to give it up. They played well in this series. I can see the Pistons come back 3-1, but yeah, it'd be tough. Fuqua. Jay Novacek, the tight end. No, Novacek, that was Aikman's security blanket. Alvin Harper's another guy. But good one there, Fuqua. Yeah, Novacek was a very good tight end. More of a pass catching. Nobody's going to confuse him for, I'll keep it recent, Rob Gronkowski. I was going to say Kellen Winslow. And Winslow was the first of those hybrid pass catching blocking tight ends. They don't want to talk about Leon Lett. Yeah. They're playing the Super Bowl. And on Thanksgiving, who can forget that one? Fuqua, hello, Giants. Yes. Yes, he is. Is he getting fired soon? Well, if they keep up this pace, they've lost 11 of 12. I'm playing a lot of MLB 2K. Oh, yeah, J-Rod, how's that going? Well, the Phillies, yeah. Now, think about this. The Mets have now lost 15 of 17, and the Phillies 11-12. And as I said earlier, they have won 18 games between the both of them, and their payrolls total this year only $695 million. This is going to make a jump on the ocean in this series. Yeah, no, they haven't been good. But they could grab the home court back tonight if they go ahead and win. And I think they'll win tonight. I think they will. Let me see if I caught up on the comments there. All right. Yeah, I know. Did I miss this one? Dante didn't get Achilles injury. Oh, yeah, no, he's out. Yeah, I did look at that. Yep. All right. Just want to make sure I got all your comments in. But yeah. Let me see. What's happening with anything else going on in sports? GM, Bill shut down trade interest in Coleman. Yeah, the same Keon Coleman that they threw overboard last year after hiring their head coach. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, just reading some stuff out, pouring on my tone. All right. Yeah, I think that'll do it, people. Unless I get some more comments. Can't agree more. Duran has to take over. He's missing in action, that's for sure. Yeah, I mean, here's a guy. You know his numbers, Jay, and he's averaged 9 points a game this series. And in the 2 losses, he scored 16 points total. How's that going to win you games? He's got to turn it around and fast if they have any shot of advancing in this playoff. All right. Yeah, I think that's going to do it, my good people. Oh, hang on. That is right. Yeah, because Kerr, he said to Steph Curry and Draymond in the last game, he goes, hey, I don't know what it's going to lead to, and yeah, he doesn't have a contract past this year. And listen, if I'm him, it's time to move on. Steph Curry's long in the tooth. Draymond's long in the tooth. Does Porzingis come back? Probably not. Jimmy Butler has a torn ACL, which is going to be rehabbing. He'll come back midseason, but that's an expiring contract. Yeah, they're a mess. If I was him, I would step down too. I wouldn't even think about it. Okay. I'm just checking to see what, no. Yeah, I think that's going to do it, people. Oh, what's this? Oh, hearing they're doing with the political crowd. Oh, with Kerr. Yeah, Kerr's going to do that. Now, I don't know how much has he been beating it over the players' heads or the organization or the city, whatever. Who knows? But war is not true. Listen, Billy Donovan's out there if you want to get him. Who else? I'm sure there's another retread that's out there that you can get. That would certainly be beneficial there by the Bay. But, yeah, I think that'll do it, people. All right, if you want to post some comments, please do so. I'm just going to wrap up my closing, and then whomever's got could be rage bait, who knows? Yeah, it's possible. And yeah, it's probably not there, Val. And that's all right. Hey, listen, nothing's forever. And you had a great run there with him, so at least you have those memories to bank on and fall back on when you think about the Warriors' success over the last 12 years or so. That'll do it, my good people. Another episode just about the books. As always, thank you so much for stopping by, carving out precious time out of your day to listen to what it is I have to say about the toy department of life called sports. And if you haven't done so, please subscribe to the channel at JAYREELZ. I would sincerely appreciate it as I try to get to 1,200 subscribers and beyond. This is true sports talk, real sports talk, none of this clickbait, rage bait garbage, as you all know. made by a lifelong sports fan, yours truly, for you guys and gals, a sports fan. So if you're going to hop on board and hit that subscribe button, pass it on to your family, friends, foes, frenemies who like sports, love sports, got to have it, can't get enough of it. This is the channel for them, I promise. So if you could do that, as well as subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts as well, and throw me a few stars, write a review. I would sincerely and gratefully appreciate that. And if you want to hit me up on any of my socials, you can do so at the following: Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, the JAYREELZ Podcast, or Instagram, just JAYREELZ. Twitter, JAYREELZ1, just a number. Twitch, JAYREELZ1, just a number. Or the old-fashioned way, the JAYREELZ Podcast at gmail.com. I'll be more than happy to follow up with you guys and gals, because whether you do or do not know, this is what I love to do, people, in the blood and the DNA since birth. Talking sports unlike any other, and all these sports in one podcast. Where else are you going to get that, people? I don't know. I'm listening. Still listening. That's it. This is Sports Talk at its finest. Twice a week, a lot going on, live streams, future guests. Stay locked into the channel, because you're going to get it all when it comes to the sports universe. And as long as I sit in front of this microphone and camera, I promise I will continue to deliver nothing but passion, fire, energy, fury, my thoughts, opinions, critiques, praise, analysis, feelings on anything and everything that happens in the world of the diamond, ice, gridiron, hardwood, golf course, racetrack, tennis court, boxing ring, octagon, you name it. From my lips to your ears, from my heart to your soul, from where I am to wherever you are, the JAYREELZ Podcast always comes live, correct, direct, and in full effect. From the South Bronx, the South Beach, the South Central, the South Pacific, and all points beyond, peace, love, and God bless everybody. And until next time on the JAYREELZ Podcast, on the flip, baby. And let's see. Yes, J-Rod, go sports. Have a wonderful day. Bio, you too. Glad you hopped on board. Glad you were with us throughout the course of this live stream. And I may do a live tomorrow night. Keep this in mind. I'll post tomorrow with guests. So I'll confirm all that by noon tomorrow. And then, of course, the live stream on Wednesday, which I'm going to have some news regarding the end of this week and even into next week when it comes to the podcast. So you want to stay tuned for that. And that'll be for Wednesday's live stream. So once again, I appreciate you all for stopping by, carving out precious time out of your day. You know how much it means to me. Goes without saying. Enjoy the rest of your Monday. And until tomorrow, everybody, peace, love, and God bless. Until then, on the flip, baby.